Hello, and thank you for connecting to this edition of Contact Center Showcase, where I bring you the news and the views and the interviews to assist contact center professionals to keep abreast of industry developments. Moving straight into it, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced many, many contact centers to rapidly, and probably over the last 3 or 4 weeks, deploy vast numbers of contact center agents, QAs, workforce management, operations managers to work from home or into remote locations. And this, of course, has had a massive effect on operational compliance and quality. So how does one manage the compliance and the quality issues associated with remote agents? And that really is today's session that we'll be talking about. Moving ahead, I'd like to introduce you to the team that we have assembled for today's webinar. They're highly experienced professionals in the space of call centers, contact centers, and all of them have experience specifically in the QA and the analytics side of operating contact centers. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce you Corey Springett. Corey comes with about 20 years of analytics, contact center, and data analytics. And more specifically, in the last few years, he's been involved in the deployment of at least 5 major installations of speech analytics in South Africa. Next, we have Henriette Potgieter. Henriette brings over 20 years experience to the table today, dedicated contact centers, focusing on compliance, focusing as well on QA, analytics, and so on. So Henriette also has many, many years of experience as a COPC implementation lead consultant. So looking forward to getting a lot of insights from her today as well. Ingrid Delew, over 30 years experience in contact centers and some very valuable insights and advice today from Ingrid. She, for the last 3 or 4 years, has been hands-on managing the deployment and optimization of a very large-scale operation using speech analytics. And Francois Duplessis, CEO of Alpha Wave Ventures, 14 years in software development in South Africa, and particularly in the last few years, specializing and focusing on the development of South African language speech analytics tools and engines. So that brings us to what is the new norm? Where is our industry heading? Well, I think certainly for the next few months, we can look at having massive numbers of agents working from home or in remote locations. That, for the time being, is the new norm that we need to become accustomed to. However, if we look forward, what's beyond that? And to try and get a fix on that over the last week or 10 days, I've been engaging and interfacing locally with our industry association, BPESA, with individual operators, and also internationally with the likes of Peter Ryan, Stephen Lloyd, Mark Hillary, to try and get a picture of what is probably going to be the new norm in the world of CX and CX delivery contact centers going forward. And the consensus view seems to be that, the COVID storm, when it passes, and hopefully sooner than later, for a long time to come, the normal will be work from home agents. And in all probability, going forward, that will be the playbook for our industry globally. Work from home, remote agents, en masse, and we need to develop the ways and means and the methods of managing that reality going forward. Given the realities of the COVID-19 pandemic, many BPOs and captives as well are moving massive numbers of agents into remote or work from home as a means of developing a whole new operating model. Corey, what is your personal observations of this dramatic shift over the last few weeks?
Rod, firstly, thank you very much and good afternoon. I think the impact has a couple of aspects to it. The first one is the sudden realization that mobile connectivity and a work from home reality is very different to the hope. So I know of a lot of contact centers that are having tremendous challenges with getting sort of telco grade connectivity in remote areas using mobile technology, but that is also not insurmountable. I think the bigger challenge comes in with how do you manage a remote workforce where you no longer have that face-to-face interaction and contact with your agents, and you don't have that visibility. You know, contact centers, you and I know, is all about feel. You can walk into a contact center and get a good feel quickly as to what's going on, and that's been removed. Which to bring back that feel, it's my view and my opinion that something like speech analytics, where you are able to monitor and listen to, and I say listen to in inverted commas, 100% of the calls, gives you again that intimacy which you're losing from working remotely.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for that input. And now over to you, Henrietta. What are your views on this?
Excellent. Thanks, Rod. Honestly, I mean, the past week, there has been a huge scramble the past 2 weeks. Definitely, I've seen clients moving thousands of agents remotely. They had to work from home. We had to get them set up to work from home. There were huge struggles with connectivity issues, agent system support, remote agent development. What do you do? How do you support those agents? And in the whole scramble, it was almost as if the agents, first-line agents, were first priority. Your QA became the second priority. So it's almost like there's that backlog and that gap where there were so many conversations happening between agents and agents and clients and customers on the phone, where QA was not yet ready. So at this right now where we are now, and what I'm seeing is that QA agents with some of my clients currently is working until 8 or 9 at night, try and catch up with that backlog and that happened because the priority was first to get agents up. All that said, I think it's very exciting times. We've now been forced to test something and work from home, which we've been talking about for so many years. We are there now, and we are seeing that reduced absenteeism. It seems agents are there in the morning, they're signing on. So I think it's really working currently.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Ingrid, you've also been working hands-on with a number of your clients. What is your perspective of the new reality?
Yes, Rod, yes. I think it's extremely exciting to see how large contact centers have been able to change their operating model to a work from home environment in such a short space of time, matter of days for some of them. And we're talking hundreds of agents. And I think what's become obvious is that aside from having a strong IT team who are able to offer obviously quick turnaround time on technical issues, contact centers are finding the need to have a very strong communication or work on their communication and record keeping strategy. I think now more than ever, managers need to understand what's going on, both from a strategic but also from an operational level. And I hope today we're going to cover some of these points from a practical perspective.
Excellent, thanks for that. I'm going to come back to Henriette now. So with QA, you mentioned that just in your little introduction there. Sadly, it moved down to second position or third position in terms of operational priorities. But do we still see QA being the typical checklist, ticking off the various compliance areas, or are we starting to see a movement towards using QA to get deeper insights into operational realities? Henriette?
So definitely, traditionally QA used to be the normal checklist. We would check and we would look, and across various operations that still is the case. But now with what we are seeing, and especially because of that loss of eyes and ears on the floor, we are not immediately there to know what's happening. We don't know what customer sentiments are. So very much it is moving, and it now more than ever needs to move that your QA is not just agent-based and what are your agents doing. Your QA needs to deliver business intelligence. Nobody knows where we're heading to. It's uncharted territory for everybody. And we need to have a model in place that allows you as quick as possible to know exactly business intelligence and what are your customers saying right now on the floor out there in the field.
Okay, very important we do that. Corey, you're pretty much hands-on, particularly in the collections environment. What are you finding as the trend towards different sets of different KPIs, or is it just the same stuff taken differently and analyzed differently?
Rod, we're certainly seeing a trend towards, and I think there's always been a big sort of hunger from most contact centers, not just in the collection space, to say, can we manage our agents better? You know, the historical KPIs, things like, you know, average handle time, number of calls per day, were a function of the information available. And Henriette made a comment around business intelligence. You know, with the advent of and readily available and affordable technologies such as Colby around speech analytics, it becomes so much easier now and practical for contact centers to roll out granular KPIs. For instance, as an example, you know, if we look at an agent, percentage of calls that were compliant and weren't compliant across 100% of their calls, rather than, you know, the 5 or 6 calls from a traditional QA approach, or, you know, how many calls that they mention a promotion if we're looking at a sales environment, or how many calls that they mention an upsell or a cross-sell as a percentage of their total call population for the day, the week, or the period. And then to track those KPIs accurately and quantifiably over time to see, do they get better and do the interventions work? So absolutely, from what I've seen and where the deployments have touched on KPIs, it's been a massive success, not just from the organizational perspective, but from team leads and the agents, because the agent can now track without arguing what their performance is like. And when they make the changes, they immediately see that uplift in their KPIs, because you can track those in a non-biased way using speech analytics.
Absolutely. And here's technology just kicking in just at the right time when we're changing the operating environment, we're changing the work from home methodology. And I think, you know, as you quite rightly pointed out, we need to use different tools to manage the workforce in a different way. I'm going to ask both Henriette and Ingrid, and Henriette first, what practical suggestions or ideas do you have at this point in time to change the way in which we do compliance and QA in the workplace using technologies such as speech analytics? Henriette, you go first.
Thanks, Rod. For me, I mean, practical suggestions or just what I would do is most definitely, and the biggest need right now is you need to up your sample size as quick and as high as you can go. If you can get to assessing and analyzing 100% of your calls, do so. So you need to have tools that enables you to do that with the amount of resources that you've got. I don't think we're in a position where we're going to recruit more people now. We need to work with what we've got. Very important, and I think where we are at currently, is we need to find a way to decrease that lag time between when the actual customer interaction happened up until when we actually have insight or feedback around what customers are saying. So we need to find a way to immediately after that interaction be able to assess and know what customers are saying. And very important for me, the third thing is we need to find a way to have a responsive model where it's not just based on what the QA sheet or what we listened for that provides your insights. We need to have a way that if we are picking up things that customers are saying, and I'm going to give an example. Say, for instance, customers have got a concern around waiting periods on life insurance. If we pick it up on the floor now, or somebody tells us that, we need to have a way to immediately to go back to the past week, 2 weeks calls to pick up whether that was an actual issue. Unfortunately, with the current using a QA checklist, if that was not something that they listened for, it would mean they need to go and assess all those calls again. So we need to find a responsive model that we can change and chop as we go.
Nice inputs. Thanks for that one. Ingrid, I'm going to ask you to come in here as well, because you've had hands-on experience running speech analytics pre-COVID. And how do you see the experience that you've gained in gathering insights through speech analytics in the new remote work from home environment?
Rod, I think the main thing is that contact centers are going to have to rely much more on digital solution and virtualized QA and coaching. In the absence of sort of readily available team managers, agents are going to need to be empowered. They're going to have to be able to access information and guidance at any time. And they need to also take responsibility for their own learning and development a lot more now. They don't have access to that TM just looking over the shoulder. I think we're going to see a big increase in just-in-time coaching. So that's a move from sort of generic coaching to short, relevant sort of coaching sessions, just focusing on the individual pertinent skills gaps and competencies. So I just want to quickly share with you something that I did implement in the past, and I think it would be really sort of a successful model. First thing, just identifying clear metrics and expectations for success, just so that you've sort of leveled the playing field and everybody is on the same page in terms of what is expected in terms of KPIs and metrics. I think that's very important. And then being able to provide a personalized visual dashboard right to the agent's desktop. And this should show the agent how they're doing in terms of all the individual metrics and how they're doing on an individual basis, as well as how they're doing in relation to the rest of the team. Also, you should be able to prioritize coaching interventions. It's no good presenting an agent with 10 areas of development. You have to be able to prioritize them and say, these are the most important. And then digital correctional coaching guides. I think that's very important. All this in the absence of having, your TM that you can sort of turn to.
Nice inputs there. Thank you very much. I'm coming back to Corey now. We start moving into some of the more details on the technology side of things. Now, Corey, you've been involved in the deployment of 3 or 4 major installations of American, UK-based speech analytics solutions, now moving into the more South African developed. What has been your experience historically with speech analytics solutions in the South African environment?
So, the common questions we often get is accuracy, but I think the conversation has moved beyond accuracy in the sense that the dollar compared to the rand from a cost perspective, the American solutions are almost unaffordably expensive for any small contact center. And when I define small contact center, we have 500 agents or less. Typically a deployment of an American on-prem solution, you're looking at least R500,000, and Ingrid and them would be attested, because it was one of the projects I did. Before you even get started, just between implementation and hardware, you're well over R1 million, and then you still got a factory license fee. And that type of model is suitable for massive 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 seat contact centers, because you can apportion that implementation and hardware cost across a number of agents. But when you 500 agents or less, it becomes unaffordably expensive. And that's why, when Francois and the team developed Corby for the South African context specifically, the pricing model is based in rands, is based for the South African market, and it takes our conditions into place. So, where 12 months ago we said it's becoming mainstream technology, as of this year with things like Corby, it's become affordable for contact centers to deploy it, and it's quick and easy. And I think that's the key around it is, for not much more than the cost of a QA per month, you can deploy speech analytics across 100 agents.
Excellent, thanks. Now, Francois, you've been sitting in the wings quietly listening to all of this. I'm going to bring you in here, if I may. If you could please just give us a background to the birth of Corby and the speech analytics using South African language models, and where the company is now positioned to assist contact centers going forward.
Yes, thanks, Rod. So as Corey said, Corby is a South African developed cloud-based speech analytics solution for contact centers. And although Corby is fairly new, the speech technology that Corby is based on has been developed over a period of more than 15 years by one of the alpha wave companies called Cygen. Okay, so Corby uses the latest state-of-the-art technology algorithms similar to what the big players like Google and Amazon are using out there. And the difference is that our focus is on South African English, Afrikaans, isiZulu, and Sesotho currently, with more languages to come. And our speech models are trained on South African vernacular speech recordings. So that's a big difference, whereas international solutions have good speech models for American English or UK English and so forth, but not so much focusing on the South African market. So our models are customized to include brand names and industry-specific terms on a per organization level, and we're constantly improving these models and maintaining the quality. So another thing is that Corby is cloud-based, and the big benefits of cloud-based is that we can really get you up and running in just a couple of hours. So it's not 3 weeks, it's not 6 weeks, it's not 3 months, it's a couple of hours, and there's no significant capital expenditure to get you up and running. We just spin up some more machines in the cloud. And it's something we can do remotely. It's really, there's so much benefits to be able to be in the cloud. Okay, and Corby is offered as a software as a service on a month-to-month basis. And as Corey said, it's extremely affordable and RAND-based. It's easy to use. You can build your first query within a couple of seconds or minutes, and you don't need weeks of training. And I really think that this is going to be a big game changer in the South African market now that everyone can afford speech analytics, and in other words, they can actually gain access to the content of their calls.
Great stuff. Well, there we've had our commercials now, so we're going to go back to some practical inputs as well. I'm going to go around the panel, and I'm going to ask first Henriette, if you give me just 2 or 3 points or advice for operators who've got agents working from home now or in a remote environment, and from your perspective, just 2 or 3 key points or words of wisdom that you can share. Henriette?
Definitely, and I'm sounding like a broken record, but you need to increase the number of calls you're assessing. It's a key, and not just for customer sentiment and business intelligence, but also now if we look at the sales environments, your banking and financial sectors, institutions, where compliance is key and it's so important. Speech analytics tool can do that for you. It will immediately flag. You're not waiting retrospectively to flag where there might be certain issues. So you can immediately have that. It's also been mentioned that now that agents are working away and at home, they need to be self-regulated. So have immediate information for them, enable them and empower them so that they are able to work. And where the tools are available, use speech analytics. It's now affordable, it's easy to access, it's in the cloud. So yes, do what you can so that you have your hands on the pulse and you know what is.
Thank you, Henriette. And Ingrid, your words of wisdom.
Yeah, I think, all the benefits that we got from speech analytics before, it's now even more important. Such tools are even more important. From my experience, speech analytics, it changed the nature of QA and compliance completely, from a checklist exercise to being able to pinpoint individual areas of strengths and weaknesses and deliver personalized coaching and more focused coaching on those areas. The second point is that I really don't think it's easy to get meaningful insights out of a handful of subjectively scored calls. So with speech analytics and this vast number of calls sort of measured over a long period of time, you're able to identify trends and get much richer insights. And thirdly, the types of insights. I think with speech analytics enables management to get much more subtle insights than what our traditional KPIs gave us. So number of calls, call duration, all very well and good. But what about sort of really subtle, almost subjective things like employee engagement and buy-in and customer sentiment? These are measures you can only get from tools like with speech analytics. And then lastly, I think if you take all of these insights, all these many insights, and you put them into a visual agent dashboard, which is real time, and deliver that to the agent, whether he's offsite, at home, or within the call center, you've got a very good chance of ensuring quality compliance.
Excellent. We're coming up to almost close to a wrap up now. Corey, I'm just going to ask you on your call to action. You do a short Zoom-based demonstration. If you just give a high level of how long that takes and the outcomes of a quick demo on your typical presentation, if anybody would like to participate.
So around the call to action, thanks, Rod. Typically what we do is we do a 45-minute sort of mild dive exercise to understand from the thing we have around speech analytics, what type of use cases you're looking for, and then we go through a demo to show you how you could do that within the Corby environment. We obviously use a sample data set. And within those 45 minutes, you'll have a very good feel for what is speech analytics, what can it do within your environment, how could it support your potential use cases. And then next steps from that would typically be a POC on your call data. As my mom always used to say, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. And for each of the clients, we recommend the POC approach. You get a good feel for what the technology is, how it works, and what it can do in your environment. So yes, I'd applaud all of the attendees if they're interested to drop us a note. I would gladly schedule those remote demos to you, have a chat around in your environment, the applicability and how you could use it, and then map out next steps if it's of interest.
Excellent, thanks for that, Corey. I'll put up the contact details on the slide just coming up in a few moments. So really, I think we start wrapping up now, and it's a thank you very much first to Henriette. Thank you for participating and for your valuable inputs. Ingrid as well, thank you. Really great to have you on this webinar, because you've had serious hands-on experience doing this over the last few years. Corey, great stuff. Thanks for the inputs, and Francois on the technology side of things. And thank you very much again to Alpha Wave for sponsoring this particular webinar. Upcoming contact center showcases in the next 10 days or so, straight after the Easter weekend. Be interviewing a number of operators who have done the movement, the transition to work from home environment. So we'll be talking to operations people, we're talking to some QA people, the technical people, all very happy to share their experiences on how they managed it and how they did it. So keep a lookout for that. And there's for more information. If you drop me a line, I will certainly be able to send any information. We have an information pack on Corby, where there's a nice little video clip as well that explains it. Have a little handbook on speech analytics in South Africa, and we'll gladly share that with you. So either email me, pop onto the Corby website, which you can see there, corby.io, and a lot more information will follow. So from our side, thank you very much once again, Corey, Henriette, Ingrid, and Francois. And in particular, special thanks to everybody who's taken the time to log on to this webinar. And we look forward to having you on future editions of our Contact Center Showcase. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.